Well, this is Dateline News and Conversation. I haven't done a show in a while, but I got the urge yesterday. I thought it was about time I had my good friend Bruce Gagnon, the coordinator of the Global Network Against Weapons and Nuclear Power in Space. Really big issue today. Bruce is in Brunswick, Maine. Bruce, welcome back.
Good to see you, and I'm glad you're still alive.
Well, we can't talk much about that, but I haven't done a show in 2 or 3 weeks. Been totally consumed with other things that are a whole lot more urgent. But I can say this because I've made several posts with some really neat little videos showing some of the day trips that we've made and a couple of symphony presentations we've gone to. This is all in the last 3 weeks since some really bad things have been happening around here. And I said, this is how Russians live and continue to live to the fullest. And they're really tough and resilient people. Well, they really are. That's about all I want to say, but I really haven't.
I really like, excuse me, I really like that video about the concert. Tanya dancing there. She was quite a dancer.
Yeah. So that's been kind of a distraction and something joyful and interesting. And it's just trying to show that in spite of the difficulty of getting attacked by drones here in Crimea on really a daily basis, and here in Yalta 3 weeks ago was kind of a big time attack. But tonight, I'm glad to have you back because I got to know what somebody in the US of A thinks about a lot of things. And we're going to start with Trump. Donald J. Trump. Now, people here, on the one hand, think he's a joke. Nobody takes him seriously. Nobody. Everybody I've met and family members and friends, they don't ask anymore. But in the last couple of weeks, everybody was saying, what do you think about Trump? And I would tell them what I think about Trump. It wasn't very laudatory. But Bruce, he went to war at the end of February against Iran. Tell me from where you're sitting, and you're very informed about everything that's going on, not only in the United States, but geopolitically. What has been the reaction, the fallout in the United States to this reckless adventure, supposedly, and you can comment on that, encouraged and maybe forced on Trump by Bibi Netanyahu in Israel? I'm dying to hear your comments.
Well, I think it's very unpopular, the Iran war. It's very unpopular with taxpayers, with people across the political spectrum, even growing numbers of Republicans. Republican people are upset with it. Not many in the Congress speak out against it who are Republicans. They're still following like lackeys Trump's line. But it's very unpopular. Trump's approval ratings are very low. With moving towards the congressional elections in November, there's already some interesting developments across the country in some of the primaries. Like in the state of Florida, for example, you might remember the name Vitamin, he's a Ukrainian heritage, but military officer in the United States during the Biden administration. He was very active, building support for Ukraine. He ran for the U.S. Senate seat, available now because Marco Rubio, was picked as Secretary of State. They put in a woman as temporary senator in Florida. So she's running for, re-election in November. And a black woman from Jacksonville, Florida, running against her, a Democrat, a state representative or a state senator in Florida. Can't remember which, in the Florida House or Senate. Anyway, she beat Vindman by 16 points, something like that, by quite a few points. And he had $16 million campaign. She had $1 million campaign. And this black woman, her name is Angie Nixon. She won. So anyway, these are the kind of things that are happening, much to the surprise of many people across the country. The more radical left-wing Democrat challengers have done well in some primaries. It doesn't mean they'll win in the November elections against Republicans, but all the races appear to be very close as a result of the Trump missteps, you could say. And then this whole thing about the aircraft carrier, George Washington aircraft carrier, USS Washington, and how it is now on its way back to the United States because they had a virtual mutiny on board over the conditions, the food, and the living conditions on board the ship and everything else. Some sailors tried to jump off the ship, committing suicide, essentially, but they were stopped. But the parents, freaking out, had a meeting with the Secretary of the Navy in San Diego and had a revolt amongst the parents, demanding that things change immediately. But what really happened as a result of the Iranian bombing during the war, after the U.S. attacked Iran, U.S. and Israel, Iran was bombing various bases in the Gulf region. And one of them, of course, was in Bahrain, which was the local base for the Navy there. And that's where they got resupplied, with food and ammunition and everything else. And after that got taken out by Iran, suddenly the U.S. resupplies were having to come from Diego Garcia, which was a very long way away from the Gulf region where these ships are deployed. So the United States is really having a lot of difficulties these days as a result of its arrogance. At the same time, our debt in the U.S. has just topped $40 trillion. And the amount of money to retire that debt is $1 trillion a year, or just to keep up with retiring it. They're not ever going to be able to retire it. And so inside of the Congress, there are all these threats now to get rid of Medicare and Medicaid, Social Security, the post office, the Veterans Administration, sell off the national forest, the national parks. All these kind of issues are screaming their way through the Congress. And this is, of course, accelerating the pressure on the Republicans during the coming elections in November. So it's just a huge shitstorm across the country right now, as we see all these things manifesting itself.
So, Bruce, before we get to the economy, which you only alluded to, the rising national debt over $40 trillion now, I have to ask you a few more questions about Donald Trump. Now, he's been pursuing a lot of his own pet projects that he's been trying to weave into what he thinks is going to be his legacy. I don't know if it started with renaming the Kennedy Center the Donald Trump Kennedy Center, pissed off a lot of people. On this side of the pond, people didn't pay much attention to that. But then he went and he really ruined the reflecting pool that runs in front of the Lincoln Memorial. And he had it emptied. He had somebody come in, a no contract bid, not even a bid, a no contract award, to line it with something and then to refill it. And then it filled up with algae and turned to like green mush algae. And then he tore down part of the, I don't know what wing of the White House it was, but he's going to build a new ballroom named after himself. And then he talked about having kind of like his own monument, like an Eiffel Tower, Trump Tower, or something in Washington. Bruce, stick right to this for the moment. He's even talked about maybe having his image carved on Mount Rushmore with the other great presidents. Is there any outrage, any reaction whatsoever from the American people? I don't care about the freaking politicians. They're all bought and paid for. They're doing what they're told. But I'm concerned, not living there anymore, what the feeling of the American people is. And we're not even getting to the economy yet. We're going to come to that. Tell me about, is there any reaction to this insanity, this egotistical, narcissistic man? And we're going to talk about his mental health in a minute. What's the reaction, Bruce? I can't believe there isn't any reaction.
He also wants to name a Navy ship after himself. Add that to your list. I think people, Democrats, a lot of independents, a few Republicans across the country are upset about all these things you've talked about. It's in the news. It's costing a lot of money. You know, this whole West Wing, extravaganza that he's doing, gold-plated ballroom with a deep, nuclear fallout shelter underneath all of that. It's costing a huge amount of money. It's in the courts. You can't do this, you can't do that, but he's doing it anyway. So it's all adding up when you add it to everything else going on, and that he's created these messes, like this war with Iran, Venezuela, stealing Venezuela's gold, right now. That's in the news a bit. So just all these things together are really crucifying his image. Just to let you know, J.D. Vance just came to Maine the other day, trying to rescue Susan Collins, who's running for re-election. And there was this guy named Plattner that was very popular with Democrats and independents. And it looked like he was going to clean her clock in November. But then it looks like the Democratic Party took him out. Here he was running as a Democrat because they were unsure of his loyalty to the Democratic Party line, the corporate line. He was getting a little too out of hand with his anti-war talk. And so they came up with some accusations against him for treatment of women, a possible attempted rape, things like that. But one of the women that levied these charges against him is a supporter of Susan Collins, and she never filed anything with the police department after this alleged incident. So anyway, he was forced out, and now the former Senate president of the Maine legislature, guy by the name of Troy Jackson from northern Maine, the same region that Susan Collins is from, the more conservative part of the state. He's now going to be the candidate against Collins. He's a very popular labor guy. He's a former logger himself in the logging industry. Not as great on peace and war issues, but probably decent on those issues in general. So anyway, JD was here, and JD also another really story I love about him. He was just in England, and he wanted to go to one of these Michelin noted restaurants, very popular restaurant, and the staff of the restaurant rebelled and said, if you allow him to come here, we're going to quit. And so the restaurant had to cancel his reservation. And there was a big protest there in London against him being there. So this unpopularity of the Trump J.D. Vance administration is sweeping the world, actually, not only here in the United States.
That's interesting. What's going on politically with Susan Collins? I knew Troy Jackson. He's from up in Aroostook County. When I was working for the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, he was in the legislature at the time. Obviously a big supporter of inland fisheries and wildlife because he was a fisherman and a hunter, and that's what Aroostook was really all about. Good guy. I hope he wins, and I hope he doesn't get taken over by the Israeli lobby like the rest of them. I got to come back to Trump. I can tell you what I've been reading from over here, not just from, and I don't read a lot of these bloggers and analysts from the United States anymore. They got nothing at all new to tell me or anybody that really knows what's going on. But people from this side are questioning Trump's mental health. I've seen interviews with doctors, former White House physicians, indicating that he is suffering from a variety of mental disorders, including dementia. There are reports that he's incontinent. There are reports that his legs and ankles are swollen, which indicates some kind of a problem with circulation with his heart. He's known to diet on McDonald's double quarter pounders and cheese, French fries, and he loves regular Coca-Cola. A man that's 80 years old is really morbidly obese, I think. This guy's headed for a heart attack. And what I'm reading is more and more people, even in the Democratic people in Congress, are calling to have him removed. What can you tell me about what's really going on in the States in terms of whether he's mentally fit to remain in office?
Well, I've said since he got elected this last time that he will not last 4 years for all the reasons you just mentioned. And it's really, I think, part of the popular discussion right now across the country, all this stuff. There's all kinds of memes about his health, his love for, as you said, McDonald's food, junk food. And everybody is really saying that he is, in fact, moving into dementia. It seems to be what we have now in America. First it was Biden and now him. These are the kind of politicians that we seem to attract. But anyway, I think it's a serious issue. And clearly I don't, I think if the Democrats are able to retake the Congress in November, there will be some investigations into his health and other matters. There very likely will be some impeachment. All you got to do if you want to impeach him is talk about Iran, an undeclared war by the Congress against a country that didn't do anything to instigate such a war. So, he should be impeached. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But clearly everybody's talking about all of that these days in this country.
one of the things my father used to say, I can remember it from when I was very young. He said, American people vote with their pocketbooks, with their wallets. Now, who was it that said, was it Clinton or somebody? It's the economy, stupid.
Clinton. Yeah.
Clinton, yeah. Okay. The reports that I read, and primarily not from American analysts, but European economists and political people doing political analysis, they are saying that what Trump has done in Iran and continues to do is not only going to crash the United States economy, because they've been drawing down from the strategic oil reserves to where it's never been before. And all the other countries that have had strategic oil reserves are also drawing down. But with the Straits of Hormuz closed and the Houthis also closing the Strait of Bahr el-Shabab, I think it's called, that Trump is not only going to crash the American economy, he is going to crash the global economy. Now, before you talk about the geopolitical fallout from this insane war that he keeps lying about, tell me about what the hell is going on in the United States with inflation, which is causing the rising of prices for gasoline, for food, for rent, for automobiles, for everything. If my father is right, the majority of the American people are going to be so pissed come November that the Republicans are going to take a ride. Tell me what's going on.
About growing unemployment in America, much of it as a result of AI. And everybody is talking about that. Data centers as well. There's a revolution across the country right now opposing data centers. They're being forced into various places. Here in Maine, up in Eastport, in the very far north of Maine, there's an effort now to establish an underwater data center just off the coast of Eastport. And there's strong criticism and organizing against that right now. So this is one part of the economic collapse that we see coming, this massive unemployment, because when AI takes people's jobs away, how are they going to live? How are they going to afford to eat? How are they going to afford to pay for a place to live, and to warm themselves in a cold Maine winter? So this is a big issue. I've come to the conclusion that these oligarchs international oligarchs who don't care about country anymore, they want to collapse the global economy. They want people that like Palantir and BlackRock and these other big corporate entities that during COVID were buying up all kinds of small businesses across the country when they couldn't afford to continue because everything was closed down. Imagine if you have a global economic collapse. These big economic grifters, many of whom are Zionists and linked to Israel, are going to be buying up everything they can around the world. We're already seeing Israel move in to try to take over Latin America. They've got their hooks into Argentina like crazy. They're trying to stop the change the election in Brazil to get rid of Lula so the Zionists can take control of Brazil.
And
they're working.
Bruce, it's big story over here. The Israelis are moving into Greece and have taken over not only the government, but are buying up property everywhere.
Yeah.
Continue. I just wanted to add that this is what we're hearing from over here. Greece, which has been eternally close to Russia because of religion, because of here in Crimea, the Greeks were here 6,000 years ago. They had trade and they built communities here. The history of Crimea is rich about how the Greeks have developed this place. And now Greece has turned against Russia and are going to be supplying Ukraine. Pick it up. Go ahead.
When we use the term Greater Israel to talk about it, how Israel wants control of parts of Egypt, they want Lebanon, they want Syria, of course, they want Palestine. We have to begin to redefine Greater Israel. Greater Israel is now global. So what you just said about Greece, absolutely true. And what I'm saying about Argentina, absolutely true. And they're sweeping throughout Latin America. I posted the other day on my blog a video story about what Israel's been doing for the last 20 years or so inside of all of Latin America, all across the entire continent. They're very quietly moving and taking control of many different countries. So this is serious stuff. So anyway, if there is a global collapse, then these big economic grifters are going to be able to buy up much of the world and turn it into one big honeypot of control and domination of the people of this planet. It's a real serious issue and a serious concern.
Listen, I agree totally. I think what this is an epic battle that's going on for the future, as you mentioned, future control and order of the world. And there's only 3 countries, maybe 4 if you count Iran, that are standing in their way right now. That's Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran. They are in this fight to not allow that to happen. A world dominated by a handful of corporate rich people, Zionists, if you want it. And so this is an epic battle. This is what it's all about that most people don't understand. It's a fight to the finish for the future order of the world. And by the way, if they win, that's the end of humanity as we know it. Now, Bruce, well, let me bring you back.
Let me add this. Scott Bessent, the Secretary of Treasury, Trump's, has just ordered this economic blockade against Iran, saying that China and Russia and all the other countries that trade with Iran will be attacked economically with tariffs and all other kinds of banking efforts to steal their money and everything else by the United States. This is all part of this overall economic collapse situation they're trying to create. But the interesting thing is Bessent used to work for George Soros. That's where he first got his name and made a lot of money and put him in a position where he could then move into this larger sphere of working to carry out this global domination economic order that Soros has long been part of. And Soros has long been an enemy of Russia and other such allies of Russia.
Before I go any further, I'm sitting back and I don't want people to think that I'm waving the flag. This is a T-shirt. It was made in Russia and sold on their version of like Amazon. It's the American flag with 2 boot prints on it. I can't express my disgust with the United States government enough. I felt that they have betrayed everybody in the country. I felt betrayed, and I'm not going to let that go. Bruce, I got to bring you back. How are you feeling? How are regular, ordinary Americans feeling about the rise in inflation, the prices for everything, for gas? Are you having to change your lifestyle uh, on whether or not you use your car, on whether or not you're reducing your consumption of grocery store food? I know you're growing a lot of your own food. Um, what what's the feeling in America by people that are being impacted by this? And I want to add this, Bruce. I don't follow sports much anymore, but occasionally I'll see reports on YouTube about a golf tournament or about a baseball game or when it was about the Olympics. The stadiums are filled. This costs a lot of money to go to a professional sporting event today in the United States. There's obviously millions of people and they're not feeling the pinch whatsoever. Reminds me back to the Roman days. Cakes and services, bread and circuses. Bruce, what the hell's going on?
Well, in our case, Mary Beth and I, we are trying to be more cautious with our spending. We understand the difficulties ahead. I think most people are very worried about what's going to happen in the next years ahead with the economy. I think everybody understands there's going to be a collapse and it's going to be increasingly difficult. The place where we live, it's like a retirement village run by a particular church. And I was talking to one of the people that do the maintenance here, and he said that the price of doing repairs is essentially doubled in the last year or so, and that it's becoming increasingly difficult, and that the church that owns this particular place we live is having to raise the rents, but they're worried because they understand that people our age can't afford major increases to cover all this. So they're going to start allowing a portion of this wonderful place we live that has lots of land and woods around it. It's just a beautiful setting. It's like a park. And they're going to start allowing people much younger to come here who they think they'll be able to charge more for rents in order to stabilize the incomes and expenditures of maintaining this place. So that's just one example. But I think everywhere in this country, people are experiencing the same kind of thing. Price of housing is just absolutely unaffordable for most younger families anymore. People can't afford to buy a house. And if you're living in a house, you can't afford to keep it up. You can't afford to put a new roof on it. You can't afford to, in the winter, to pay the cost of the heating oil because it's going up like crazy. You can't afford to drive your car so much anymore. Vacations are becoming problematic. So the whole way of life here is changing. But you know, I've known it's coming for a long time because in America we're about 5% of the world's population, and we've historically used 25% of the world's resources. And the way that we can get away with doing that is by having this military around the world that keeps its boot on the neck of countries like Iran and Iraq and places all over Africa and Latin America, et cetera, where resources are available and the U.S. takes them. And so it's inevitable as the American empire begins to collapse. It's inevitable that life is going to change here. And it's going to be difficult for people, but I've been prepared for it for a long time. That's why we sold our house some years ago and moved into this smaller one-bedroom apartment because it was a cheaper way for us to live because we could see the writing on the wall. And I think a lot of people who haven't been willing to make that change are going to be facing hard times here in America.
I want to change the subject. You know, with the war in Iran, the headlines about the war in Ukraine have just about disappeared. Now, Lindsey Graham died, I don't know, a week or two ago.
More than that.
Yeah, whatever it was, recently. He was the worst warmonger, anti-Russian person alive, I think. He's famous for saying the money that we're spending in Ukraine to kill Russians is the best investment we've ever made. And he said, we're willing to keep this up until more Russians are killed to the last Ukrainian. I have to tell you this. Okay, we're part of that war now. And the UK boastfully, with this new prime minister who just came to Kiev, promising to support Kiev to the end. And the UK has been sending their new jet-powered drones. They're not these little quadcopters. These are big.
Can't hear you. You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you were muted.
Yeah, the microphone, I bumped it, it fell over. The British been bragging about supplying Ukraine with these airplane-type drones powered by jet engines and their Storm Shadow missiles, which they've fired deep into Russia. Now, Putin has issued stern warnings, as well as Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, Peskov, who's the spokesman for Putin, stern warnings to England, France, Germany, and others who they consider now direct participants in this war against Russia. Now, Bruce, does the American public have any appetite for this war in Ukraine? Bruce, do they even know what the hell is going on? Briefly, your comments on that. And then I have some personal questions.
Well, you know, I don't know if you know, Lindsey Graham's sister was appointed by the governor of South Carolina to take his place until the next election. And she just won the primary, the Republican primary, to represent that party in the election in November. So she didn't know a damn thing about foreign policy. She was asked a question recently about Taiwan, and she didn't know anything about Taiwan. It became kind of a big story where she couldn't even answer the slightest question about U.S. policy in Taiwan. So this indicates the situation in America and inside of the Congress of the United States. I think the UK, by the way, is collapsing as we speak. Their economy is just falling apart like crazy, as is happening throughout Europe, because largely of all the money they've been siphoning to Zelensky and his cronies that they're stealing like bandits. And so Europe is paying a hell of a price for this war in Ukraine. Now, in the United States, I'll just give you an example. Here in Brunswick, Maine, we have a group called Peaceworks. We have a listserv. And on this listserv, there's a person who continually makes the case in support of Ukraine. And she continually makes this anti-Russian going all the way back to Stalin, equating the former Soviet Union with the current government of Russia, basically accusing Putin of being a Stalinist, in so many words. So this is happening still. After all these years in this country, there are still people within the so-called peace movement who don't want, for whatever reasons, and there are many, I'm sure, they don't want to really understand what's really going on in that war in Ukraine, where Ukraine is being used as a proxy, as a hammer to try to take down Russia. So Russia can be balkanized, broken to pieces, and its many resources across the vast country can be taken by the various resource extraction corporations that run the United States and NATO, who are waging this war against Russia.
Okay. With the time that we have left, I want to talk about some of your activities. You and a faithful group of people from around the state of Maine have been out in various places protesting. You were out there protesting the war against Ukraine. You were out there protesting the war against Iran. You're out there protesting to bring our taxpayers' dollars home, bring the military home, and stop all this military adventurism around the world. But you have been sponsoring an event every year in the fall, which I have documented a couple of them, Keep Space for Peace Week. Tell our audience what this is all about. It has everything to do with your organization, that you were a founder and you now have been the coordinator for what it is. God, it's got to be over 20 years. What is this all
34.
about?
34 years.
And what is this all about now? And why is space right now such an important issue that freaking nobody is talking about it? All of these bloggers, all of these blabbermouths, they have millions of subscribers, hundreds of thousands of views within minutes after they go on here. Nobody is freaking talking about this. Bruce, inform the audience. What the heck is going on, and what are you trying to do about it?
Before I do that, I want to just add one thing, a very important thing. We've been protesting, as you said, monthly. We go all over the state, from north to south, to east to west. Every month, we go to a different community, stand at the busiest intersection with signs and banners, and invite people to come and join us. We've been doing that since February of 2022, and that we started saying no war with Russia. And as you said, we've moved into other issues like Iran, but you didn't mention Palestine and the genocide in Palestine. So I don't want to leave that out. That's been one of the key issues that we've been vigiling about during all this time. On September 12th is our next protest. We're going to Wiscasset, Maine, right at the bridge where a famous tourist trap, Red's Eats, I know you're very familiar with it, is all, you don't come to Maine and don't go to Red's Eats. That'd be a terrible thing. But about space, recently, Secretary of War, Pistol Pete Hegseth, went on a freedom tour across the country. He went to various military bases and military production facilities. He came to Bath Iron Works here in Maine, where they build the Navy destroyers that are today parked off the coast of Iran, Russia, and China. And these ships have so-called missile defense systems on them, part of U.S. first strike attack planning. The idea is the U.S., and this is something they war game every year at the U.S. Space Command, a U.S. First strike attack on Russia and China, trying to take out all of their nuclear capability. And inevitably, you don't get all of it, and then they launch a retaliatory strike. And it is then that these so-called missile defense systems would pick off the remaining retaliatory strike of Russia and China, giving the US a successful first strike attack. Now Trump has introduced the Golden Dome program, where he wants to have orbiting battle stations up there that would be part of this missile defense system, picking off any retaliatory strikes. So that means the only way you can do that is if you control and dominate space and don't allow any other country to get up there, like Russia and China. So right now there's a huge competition to fill up lower Earth orbit by the United States, Russia, and China primarily. And the United States is working with Elon Musk to fill it up with as many satellites as possible. It's like a grocery store parking lot where there's limited parking spaces in the parking lot, and the US is trying to fill up these parking spaces before Russia and China can do so in a big way. And so Hegseth, during his Freedom Tour, said the following, that we don't care about fairness and equity in space. We will dominate space because whoever dominates space will win all of the wars, will dominate the Earth. And so that's what space is all about these days. And so our program of trying to keep space for peace, and during this Keep Space for Peace week, we asked people all over the world to hold local events and make these connections between all of these wars and how space technology enables all of these wars today. It directs and coordinates them. These drones that hit your apartment building there from Ukraine, that hit your apartment building in Yalta, Crimea, were guided by U.S. space technology, U.S. satellites, U.S. giving the coordinates, U.S. helping to fly these drones with space technology to do that. So this is all a today issue, but it also has major implications for the future. The American Physical Society says that in order to pay for this thing, it's going to cost trillions and trillions of dollars. And the United States saying Trump is saying he wants to have this drone shield not only over the continental United States, but over Canada and even Europe. Now just imagine the cost now that's doubling and tripling and quadrupling. So like 20, 30, 40 trillions of dollars to cover this Golden Dome that all these places Trump wants to do. And where's the money going to come from? Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, Veterans Administration, Post Office. I mentioned all this earlier, that they want to privatize all these programs. They want to turn this into a feudal state backed up by the power of ICE and military on the street, suppressing all protest against this fascist nation that we're becoming. And this is the program for the future in order to have this space shield, this space warfare program, giving the US and Israel, greater Israel now, as we talked about before, domination of the entire planet, domination of the resources of the entire planet. This is the program, and space giving them the arm to carry it out.
As I mentioned when I introduced this topic with you, nobody else is talking about it. You've been at this for 34 years. You've traveled all over the world. You've had your annual meetings in a number of countries, from Sweden to Japan. I participated in the one in Japan in Kyoto. And it's really hard to get the message out because you don't have 265 or 1 million subscribers, and you don't get several 100,000 views and likes after every time you speak. And this is what we're up against. These things that nobody's talking about. The real war is for the future control and order of the world. This other war is part of that domination. But my thing, Bruce, and you mentioned it earlier, you said the United States is on the verge of an economic collapse. Humanity can only hope and pray that it comes soon to do away with this madness. Because when that collapse comes, it's not just the United States, it's all of those fascist people in governments across Europe. And we got to hope and pray for that. Now, Bruce, what's on your agenda in the next few days, months? What's coming up for you?
Well, I've been invited to speak at a conference in India in early October during Space Week, and it's a conference being organized by one of our board members who's already done 2 previous conferences on space law from our perspective, having real treaties that ban weapons in space and everything else. So I'll be speaking there. And then I go to Cambodia to visit my son and his family. I'm a grandfather now. I have a 14-month-old grandson who I'm eager to see again. And after that, I'm going to Nepal, where we have a global network affiliate group, and I will be speaking for a couple days in Kathmandu. So anyway, that's the immediate things. But I'm daily doing my work and blogging. I hope you'll put a link to my blog in your in whatever you have when you send out this video. And so that's my story.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Here it comes now. Yeah.
I don't know if you can see it, but I've been scrolling your website and your blog across the bottom of the screen several times during the show, and right now I'm doing it again. I would like to encourage people to go and to donate to help support this 34-year-old mission to keep space for peace, not to allow anybody, but especially the United States, to try to dominate, control space, and make it another front for global war. And that's what's going to happen.
Let me thank you for saying that, because actually it's things are getting a little thin in our budget these days. Our early donors from the beginning years, a lot of them came from when I worked for the Florida Coalition for Peace and Justice. A lot of our early donors have died. And in recent years now, because of the growing fears and economic uncertainties, inflation, and economic collapse here, it's becoming harder to sustain this kind of work that I do. And I've been doing it a long time. I started actually working on space in 1982 when I began working for the Florida Coalition for Peace and Justice. So the global network was created in 1992. So if you go to our website, there is a donate page, and we could really use the support and the help. Thank you, Regis.
Yeah, well, I want to encourage everybody. Look, I know a lot of you are subscribing and paying money to a lot of the really big-time bloggers who have become superstars out there in the blogosphere. I'm not going to name them, but they're all making lots and lots of money. Some of them are millionaires because of the amount of money that people are paying them to continue what they're doing. They're missing the point on all of this shit, okay? They just keep, it's like a washing machine, just the same garbage over and over and over again. And none of these people that I know of have been working at this in an organization that's global for 34 years like you have. You and I have been friends for 20 years now. It goes back to 2006 when I first came back to Maine. I have participated in many of your protests. I have participated in your Space for Peace weeks. I have traveled with you to many of your global network meetings. I mentioned in Japan, in Huntsville, Alabama. I think it was Huntsville, Alabama.
Yeah.
And I can't emphasize enough and plead enough for people to contribute to the global network to help Bruce continue to get this vital message out. I don't ever publish anything, and I've done over 750 films, videos, and podcasts in the 6 years that I've been living in Russia, never behind a paywall. There have been a handful of people that have contributed, not because I asked, because they wanted to. I appreciate that, but I don't ask for it. I don't need it. But I have to implore you, please contribute whatever you can to the global network. Bruce is head and shoulders above all of these rock stars on the blogosphere. I'm telling you, none of them have the history that he has. None of them have been focusing on the important issues of war and peace all over the world, but in space. Bruce, I hope that this helps. We'll have to do it again because, I don't have a huge audience, but it's like a ripple effect. There are people in my network, and there's probably just a very few thousand, who something will strike them, and then they will share it with a larger network, and then it gets shares again with another larger network. And so I want to stay on top of this, not because you're a friend, but because I've been invested in what you've been doing for the last 20 years of my life. Bruce, thanks so much for coming on the show again. You look great, by the way. I can only wish you good health, continued stamina and energy, and safe travels.
Thank you. Thank you, Regis. Same to you.